Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis everywhere. Welcome back. Vidyananda Das here with a live stream. My desk is on my bed. That's why it shakes every time I touch it. And it's not a desk. It's a laptop stand. I get a brand new one, which I'm excited about, but I still, 8 months into Korea, I still don't have a desk. And I'll probably never have one because I don't really need it. My room's small. Maybe I'll get one. Can easily afford it. Welcome back, Krishna. I'm so glad he's in my home. I'm saying good morning, Krishna. I'm trying to remember to do that as soon as I wake up in the morning and look at him. And good night, Krishna, too, will help. I got this idea from some Christian preacher on a YouTube video I randomly saw a few days ago. So I hope to keep doing that. Today, we are reading chapter 8, verse 17 through 19. Real short verse cluster, very particular. Verse 19 has no purport. Anyway, it's probably not going to be that long. And we can get right to it. You can join me or not in honoring this here Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Oh, let's read all 3 verses. First, with the literal translation by H.D. Goswami. As I mentioned a little briefly last time, this cluster is the same cluster we see in H.D. Goswami's Kindle book. The physical book might be different. I think I left that in America. Anyway, I don't need it because I got one right here. Okay, 17 through 19. Those that rightly know day and night know that Brahma's day endures for 1,000 ages, as does his night. At day's coming, all manifest beings emerge from what is called the unmanifest. And at night's coming, they are reabsorbed right there into the unmanifest. Repeatedly coming into being, Partha, this very collection of creatures is helplessly reabsorbed at night and again goes forth at day. Very simple. I mean, it's honestly really obvious to see that this is a cluster. When you read it like that, it just flows neatly and perfectly with one theme throughout. I think I mentioned at the beginning, this is particular, 1,000 ages, it's all about time. And it's very particular. Doesn't mean it's overly technical and not significant. And so that's what I'm going to try to talk about today is the significance, perhaps symbolism, and so on of these verses. So let's get to it with Prabhupada's verse 17. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. The Sanskrit is, the translation in the Sanskrit is pretty straightforward here with pretty much all these verses. Now, interesting to note in the word-for-word translation, yuga is the Sanskrit word, and it means, well, Prabhupada translates it as millenniums. But it also means ages. And we'll see as we read the purport later that while the word yuga may literally mean millenniums, I mean, it's you can see it kind of means two things at the same time, and they're not contradictory. So millenniums plural means thousands, but how many thousands, that depends on which yuga we're talking about. So that's what we're going to talk about later. I mean, honest, that's really it. Although a difference is, thousand is precise. I believe that's, yeah, because Prabhupada would have said thousands, but he doesn't. He just says thousand, and then which is sahasra, and then later it's sahasra antam, which is anterior, right? The end of 1,000 is night. And it does say that this is understood by people. Vidaha janaha. So this is by human calculation, as Prabhupada translates it. And Krishna's literally saying, people understand it like this. It is realized, vidaha, understood and realized by people in these mathematical terms. Another thing of note, and I did put this verse into my notes, into my Bhagavad Gita encyclopedia notes, where I literally just go from chapter 1 to 18, some key verses of each that I can use as quick reference for, just really significant things. So if you want to know what is time, what is the yugas, it's all in this verse, especially the purport. So chapter 8 verse 17, I saved that in my notes. I recommend y'all do the same. This one verse in purport should tell you everything you need to know about cosmic time in Hinduism. Not just this sect or branch, but basically most all of Hinduism can be perfectly summarized in this one verse and the first purport of it as well. And before we get into the technicals, which we may not even get into, one more thing. What is the purpose of this verse and this cluster? Well, it's twofold, I think. One is to humble us, is to show it once we start thinking, oh, I live so long and I have so much time to blah, blah, blah. No, you're compared to Brahma, compared to the demigods, we're little specks. We got nothing. So that's one point, is to humble us. And then the other point, because remember, this is just one cluster among many in a perfect sequence, is to drive the point home of the previous verse cluster. And that's what Prabhupada does in the second paragraph of the purport, where he says, quote, in the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death, unquote. So on the one hand, time is so incredibly long, we can barely calculate it. What to speak of really empathize with it as humans. But on the other hand, Brahma is a dude, just like us. He's a person. Maybe dude is a profane word I shouldn't use. But he has a day and he has a night. He has a inhale and an exhale. And it just so happens that for his inhale and exhale, for his day and night, millions and billions and trillions of creatures are living and dying and reproducing, and their babies are dying. And, it's just incomprehensible what's happening. And the law of correspondence shows that actually that is what's happening to us as well. So maybe dude is not so profane, because within the trillions of living entities inside my body, within one day, how many of them are dying, living and dying and reproducing, and their babies are dying? This is happening quite a lot. It's just a difference in scale, but the essential principle, the law of correspondence, basically means as above, so below. But in due course of time, Brahma and all inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death according to the law of material nature. That's how the purport ends. I'll be right back with something special, new thing from India to show you. This took about a month to arrive from India. Um, I bought it on Coupang, which is the Korean version of Amazon delivery website service. And I just searched copper bottle, and this is one that came up. And then the brand name is called KC. It's got a picture of peacocks on it. So this is from some Krishna guys for sure in India. But it just says KC. It's totally subtle. When you read the product description, it just says, high quality copper, good for your health, blah, blah, blah. Good price, very cheap, like 10, $11, free shipping. It's part of, a huge online Amazon type site. So it doesn't actually mean no one's paying for the shipping and the importing and all that stuff. It's just, for me, it's, cheaper. Hare Krishna. I can't really discern the differences between water that's stored in copper or otherwise, but there is absolutely a difference I can tell between the bottled spring water I buy from Jeju Island, which is tasty and delicious and good for my body. My body literally accepts it as it goes down, versus even the filtered water here, just the filtered tap water, at the water coolers that are everywhere. At my school has a couple. My judo gym has the same one from the same company. So it's definitely filtered, but it's also just filtered tap water. And I typically burp soon after drinking it, which I think is an obvious sign from my body that we don't want this. Get this crap out of here. Moral of that story, that anecdote, is to pay attention to the physical intelligence already within you, which is smarter than you at physical things. That's not always true, but for someone like me who's always into philosophy, like these physical things, I don't have time to master and really get into. Like music is another one of those things. It's not who I am, so I just have to follow humbly to higher authorities. Okay, let's talk briefly. This is the only long purport in the cluster. And then, yeah, so let's talk about age. A kalpa is a day of Brahma, and one day is 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. So that's the part that you will not be able to understand just by reading the verse, because the verse literally says 1,000 yugas. It doesn't actually say 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. But obviously this is true. It's not just like Kali Yuga over 1,000 times. Maybe it's not obvious. If you're new here, or if you're like, you may be an advanced devotee of the Lord from the Church of Christ, and it may not be obvious to you that this is how time works. But for the average person who might be listening to this, like, you've heard of the 4 yugas before, and they are a cycle that go in and out through each other all the time, just like the 4 seasons and the inhale and exhale of breath. This is just the cycles of life that go on and continue. And I'm gonna kind of skip the descriptions that, like, obviously Satya Yuga is the good one and Kali Yuga is the darkest one. But let's talk about time. Satya Yuga is 1,728,000 years. Treta Yuga is 1,296,000 years. Dvapara Yuga is 864,000 years, and Kali Yuga, which has been already going on for the past 5,000 years, Kali Yuga in total is 432,000 years. What's really beautiful about this, and it also makes perfect sense, is that the time decreases within each age. Um, there's a lot of hope, I think, to be gained by meditating on this. Um, but it's at the same time, there's just a technical, practical kind of truth to this. Not practical, but like a geometrical, mathematical kind of understanding of this, which is that goodness, virtue, health, and so peace, um, these things that are abounding in Satya Yuga, they promote long life. They promote good families. They promote a healthy planet and so on. So obviously, the good age will last longer than the dark age. That's the mathematical part of it. The hope part of it is that the Satyam Eva Jayate, the good in the end, the truth and the good will always win in the end. So the badness, the darkness is by definition an absence of light. And we're living in a universe that's from light and sourced by light. And in the end, it all goes back to light. So there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And the darker the tunnel is, the brighter the light is. Also important to note, vice increases to such a point in Kali Yuga that at the termination of this yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demon, saves the devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. The process is set rolling again. I believe I've been reading Revelation, the book of Revelation, and it mentions several times a great white knight on a white horse with a sword. And that could be Kalki, which would, ironically or not, be a disproof of what my Bible course has been teaching. They think the second coming is right now. We're in it right now. But if it's true that the book of Revelation is referring to Kalki, Sri Kalki, that can't be right now, because do the math. 5,000 years into 432,000 years, we're not even close. We're not even close to that. Oh, man. At least I got good water. Hare Krishna. Literally, Hare Krishna. He is the taste and water. So 1,000 cycles is one day, and another 1,000 cycles is one night of Brahma. And Brahma lives 100 of such, quote, years, unquote, and then dies. So these are 100 of his years. And then Prabhupada did us some mercy of doing the math. So by human and earth calculations, 100 years of Brahma is how long? It's 311 trillion and 40 million earth years. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Prabhupada says here too, this seems fantastic and interminable. But From the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. In the causal ocean, every time I read that, I have to stop myself. It's not casual, it's causal. In the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas, rising and disappearing like bubbles in the Atlantic. I think it's really significant Prabhupada chose the word Atlantic there. He may have been just simply remarking for a brief moment on his experience in the Atlantic, which could be his only physical experience in an ocean in his lifetime, was the Atlantic Ocean on his trip on the Jaladuta. India, is it maps.google.com or map or whatever? It worked. So is India next to India is next to the Indian Ocean. Does that count as one of the main oceans? I think it does. Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, North, and South. I think there's 5 oceans, and that's what they are. Yeah. Southern Ocean, they call it. I think there was some recent thing where they had to change. Antarctica is has some hidden esoteric secrets in it that the demons are trying to hide from the people, so they simply have to call it Southern. But Arctic, they didn't change. It's just they could just call it Northern, but they call that one Arctic, which is now mostly melted away, according to just Google Maps. I'm looking at that in Antarctica. Wow, there's a lot of land there. Interesting. And one part of it would lock in place perfectly with South America. Maybe they used to be connected. That's interesting. I'm trying to see if Australia might have been able to fit in to one little place there. Yep, I could see that. Not perfect, but yeah, Australia minus Victoria might be able to fit there. Anyway, who cares, buddy? Who cares? I was wondering if maybe the Pacific Ocean could count as near India, but definitely not. Yeah, there's too much land around it. And at the same time, that water body between Africa and Australia and south of India is so vast, you can't call it a sea. It has to be called an ocean, the Indian Ocean. Absolutely. But before you get to the Indian Ocean, you'll have to first go through the Lakadive Sea and the Maldives, and then you enter. And then you get to the equator, and then you're at the Indian Ocean. Okay. Yeah, once again, this is really interesting and significant. I think it could have also been, a kind of mercy thing where Prabhupada is giving a chance to his devotees and especially his first generation disciples to remember with fondness what Prabhupada went through by writing the Atlantic. He didn't have to do that. He could have just said the ocean. He could have said rising and disappearing like bubbles in the ocean or in the seas or in the water or in the Ganga, in the Yamuna. He could have chosen, maybe with a river, it doesn't quite work. But anyway, he specifically chose Atlantic there with a capital A. I think that's interesting and significant. Jai. Jai, Jai, Jai. Okay, 18 and 19, this will be pretty fast. Here's verse 18. When Brahma's day is manifest, this multitude of living entities comes into being, and at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. So, and I mentioned this before, and I'll say it again, the main significance here is the law of correspondence, which is as above, so below. So just as the breath will have to come in, it means it must also go out. Just as day comes, night must come. And if during the daytime creatures are being born, at nighttime they must die, so that the next day they are born again. And the next night they die again. This is math. It's really basically just math, basic geometry, rhythm, the math of music, the math of vibration we're talking about here. Very interesting first sentence from Prabhupada here. The less intelligent jivas try to remain within this material world and are accordingly elevated and degraded in the various planetary systems. And they are annihilated at nighttime. They have various bodies, and then those various bodies perish. But the jivas remain compact in the body of Vishnu and manifest again and again in Brahma's day. But when Brahma is finally finished, they are all annihilated and remain unmanifest for millions of years until Brahma can be born again. The jivas are captivated by the material world. That's a beautiful sentence. In this way, the jivas are captivated by the material world. Obviously, this is related to the word in captivity. But in English, when you say in captivity, it has this really negative, like, oh, you're in jail and this sort of thing. But being captivated is also kind of like being stuck, but it's like being stuck in wonder. And that's literally true. That's why we're still here, is because that Mahamaya, she's sexy, man. We just want more of her. We're captivated. It's probably the best word. Let's check out what it really means. Attract and hold the interest and attention of, charm. Okay, but I need etymology because it's English and I still don't know what the heck it means. 14th century. Oh, dude, I hate you. You just tell me the time, but not what it means. I hate you and your stupid dictionary. Go to unbelievable. From Latin, captivus, taken captive. Let's look up captive then. Caught or taken prisoner. So that could be a cognate in English. Captive and captivus and caught. P changed to GH. Possibly. Could be a cognate. And captivus comes from the Latin root capere, which means to take hold or seize. So once again, I mean, it's the most perfect word in the most perfect way that Prabhupada could have written it there. So it does literally mean like you're a prisoner, which is true for most of us who are here in this world. We are literally prisoners of Maya, but at the same time, we are not spiritually or physically imprisoned. I mean, maybe we're imprisoned in these bodies, but we have so much free will, we can get out very quickly. If we really want to, the key is desire. If you really sincerely and strongly desire to get out, you will simply get out. and there's nothing Maya can do to stop. She'll try to stop you, but if you are sincere and strong and good, you will be, the angels will come and pick you up and drop you off where you want to go very quickly, easily, and simply. And I think that's one of the main points of all religion, is to cultivate that nature so that the angels can do their job, because we're not angels, we're humans. So the human wants to be sincere, humble, virtuous enough, and that's the foundation. And then from that foundation, get a hunger and the right subtle desire for spiritual self-realization. And when you get both of those together, that's ethos ananda. So ethos means, virtue, rationality, justice, virtue of character mostly. That's the foundation. That's where you start. And a lot of you people need to do that. Westerners don't have ethos. So they think they can, read some, but even by Prabhupada, I'm going to get saved. But they're using Christian terms. They have rocky soil. So, they attain a great advancement for a short while, and then they fall down again. And then what happens after that? Well, who knows? But you need a strong foundation. Then you need Srila Prabhupada or Jesus Christ or whatever, Buddha. And then that's not enough either. That you still need mercy and grace as well. You still need Lakshmi. You still need some fortune, the angels will try to help you. If you have your foundation and you have a sincere desire, the angels will start coming to you to bring you up. But that you can still, it's not guaranteed. You can still fall down again. So, but the chances are lower, and maybe just patience. For some people, for some souls, it may just be patience. Oh, if it's not this lifetime because of one mistake I made or something, okay, I won't go backwards. I'll just wait until the next lifetime. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay strong in my desire. And the angels maybe will say, okay, yes, we will help you with that. And if with enough patience, then what can anyone say? What can God say? What can Maya say? Well, he deserves it. He must be given what he deserves. The universe is naturally just. So the more we align with that, the more we benefit. However, those intelligent beings who take to Krishna consciousness and chant Hare Krishna, Hare Rama in devotional service transfer themselves, even in this life, to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful there, not being subject to such rebirths. This is so much more fun than my Christian Bible class. Verse 19. Again and again the day comes, and this host of beings is active, and again the night falls, O Partha, and they are helplessly dissolved. No purport to verse 19, which only happens a few times in the Gita, more than once, more than twice. I'm not sure how many times, maybe 10 times in the Gita. There's verses with no purport. And I'm not counting verses that are combined together with a purport, but just a verse by itself with no purport, that probably no more than 10 times, I think, in all 700 verses, we're going to see that. It's significant. I'm not sure why. It could just be a very simple, practical reason that it's obvious that whatever purport there would be for this verse is already included in the previous two purports. That's what my intuition and rationality tells me, is that Prabhupada, under Krishna's direction, saw that there was simply no need for a purport for this verse, so there is simply no purport for this verse. The key here in this cluster is that it doesn't matter if you live 1 human year or 1 trillion human years. Jiva Tattva, which is what we are, what we're in, means the body dies and the soul continues in another body. And Jiva Tattva within Maya, within this Mahamaya material world, means there's always suffering. Brahma suffers. There are stories, all the demigods suffer in different ways. You can read about it in Krishna Leela. Indra, with the Govardhan story, Indra gets angry and, spreads the rain out a lot. If he wasn't suffering, getting angry, why would he bother? Why wouldn't he just, these people want some rain, they want some crops, here's some rain. Oh, they don't want some rain. Okay, you don't have to have rain. Like, that would seem to make more sense to me as someone who never suffers and so on. But demigods are people too. And I really don't want to offend anyone, especially someone higher than me, so I shouldn't keep talking about this. I do strongly believe that my heart of hearts has a noble intention to bring the divine down a peg, so that it can be understood and actually acquired by people who are worthy. And I think I'm doing a good job at that, because there's nobody watching this right now. There's nobody joining me live. There's no marketing. So this is truly a gem. And if someone does come here and find it, well, that sort of person is not the sort of person who will get offended and then cause some trouble. They're not swine. I'm not casting pearls onto swine. I'm casting pearls onto those who deserve it, which may be 0 people, and that's fine. So that's all. 38 minutes. Good. A little too long, but one of those verses, 17, was really significant. We'll see you next time. We have, I think it's 28 verses in this chapter, so maybe 2 or 3, probably 3 more weeks to go in chapter 8. Hare Krishna. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as it is, #as it is.com. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shri Vaishnava, Jai Shri Vaishnavis all over the world. See you later.